Hello and welcome to this first technical episode, even though it's not the first episode, but it's going to be the first term and the first real, true episode of Deconstructing Distortions. My name is Allie with A. Marie Speaks, and thank you so much for joining me and listening and taking an interest in distortions and what we're doing here. If you watched the sort of preliminary episodes that have come along already, thank you so much. They are pretty much prerequisite to this first episode, and so I would really hope that people will watch them and take the time to. You can listen and that's fine, but to understand a little bit more about what exactly I am speaking on with the term distortion and who exactly I'm attempting to angle this series towards, it would probably be beneficial to watch those first two videos. So I'll put the links down below in the descriptions, in the comments, for anybody who's kind of new. But for this first episode here, I am going to really not give the whole preamble. So we're just going to jump into it, and you'll sort of get, I guess, a live working of what I'm talking about. So, first term that I would really like to go over and pull back the veil on, really, here for us, is the word command. Now, command in itself has so many different usages and sort of applications based on the industry or angle of use that is prompting the word, right? So if it's a command in a business world, if it's command in computer jargon, if it's commands from your parents, if it's a command from God, right? There's these different sort of ways that we can use that word. And here in this sort of session and in this attempt, this is totally new for me too, so bear with me, and perhaps I'll be switching it up later and coming at these videos in a different way. I don't really know, but this is supposed to be geared towards those of us who've been awake for a while, right? And we've had time to sort of get bristles off. We're not easily triggered. We're able to see through the role of the observer, through practice and experience, right? To sort of step back out of pinned duality and forced oppositional views to see more of the whole. That's the picture that the two create, right? And learning to use that sort of third-person view or step back out of this sort of duality to see triality, to see more of what the whole coin is versus the heads and the tail side only, right? So for those of us who have been doing the work and who kind of can come at this word and be able to hold multiple perspectives at one time is really who I'm trying to speak with, and what I am trying to do myself and have been doing. That's what I'm going to be kind of talking about. The first kind of layer of command that I would like to talk about with this Deconstructing Distortion series in general is to sort of talk about the manipulated, purposefully distorted version of command, which usually, when we see the world today, and what we're going to have to talk about is the elephant in the room here, is the negative agenda and and the sort of matrix overlay, the mind control matrix, whatever you want to use to describe the sort of forced society game world that we just are already born into, right? I mean, there's no two ways about it. We are birthed and born into a timeline of already happeningness, of external world, of, you know, of these other realities out there, which seemingly are very separate and different from our own, right? And one of them, or a conglomerate of them now, seem to be a little bit louder and a little bit more tangible, solid, a little bit more forced, a little bit more of the most obvious choice, the easiest. It's very forced and infringing, and it's very unfair, and it's not organic. This negative alignment, these choices, these forced sort of things that are on us with the corrals of government and all of the sort of negative systems that are out there with industry and big business and the whole global thing. There's an orchestration that's undeniable, right? And so with coming into the adept sort of level of reality and of mastery, of working towards mastery, of course, in this, whatever it is, journey, game of life, soul ascension, whatever we're on here, path of mastery, the many walks of many masters, is kind of what I'm coming around to. My life is lifetimes of, you know, wearing the character and archetype and the role in the life, and walking through it and learning those experience points in the hard shapes of reality in the one lifetime, and what you do with it, you know. I don't want to get too veered off of my main topic either, and to keep these videos on time is so difficult. So those of you who are not new, you know, like I can be long-winded. But being now sort of more in this sort of level, I am able to see, and most of us are more able to see, and there's more light in general, you know, so even those who haven't been doing the work for a long time are able to now see as well, because it's just getting more lighter, you know. And plain as day, we see there's manipulations here. We see, wait a minute, you've kind of hijacked the words, and you're forcing these things upon us, but there's lots of other options, and kind of like you admit there's other options too, but you're trying to say you're the best, or the most convenient, or the most reliable, or whatever the case is, when really you're not, actually. So let's start all admitting that you're not, and let's start actually looking for real at what's around, and trying to clear the ground and find out what is actually more truer to a likeness for everyone that we can all agree upon. Same thing with these words, right? So like the word command. I really want to pull back out of this sort of negative jams of forced perspectives in these different varieties of life that I kind of already talked about, no matter where we want to come at the word command, right? Pull it back into the truth of it, and to see what is the potentiality of the working, and to make the orientation and of the jargon more positive, so that our mind habitually remembers, oh yeah, I don't need to jam myself into this negative version of the word and create similes and analogies and all of these sort of little reality bubbles around the word that have more magnetism, sort of more gravity pulling them towards each other. Those are other words that I'm going to go through, the sciencey realm words. I don't need, you know, I'm not trying to actually compare them and say magnetism, electricity, static, all of these things, like just giving references to the amazing mystery of organic pulling together and calling that we see. that we've named, and we call these, scientists call these certain things, and we try to describe and put descriptions and names on, but we are not creating them, and we are not, like, they're there without us. They're part of that external reality that I talked about already, the sort of otherness happenings, the sort of clock mechanism, beautiful organic matrix, the truth of, you know, the truth of the organic body, the large external bodies that are at work here. When we actually observe those and work to define what we're seeing and work with what we're seeing, and instead of, forcing the communication in a certain direction, we just allow listening and speaking from both directions, and in all directions, in fact, then we can really get through to better understandings. And so command in itself, at first, it's seems forced, and it seems a top-down hierarchy, of course, because everything we kind of get jammed habitually into seeing authoritative figures telling us what to do. That's really been such a mind control. But as I said, we as the adept sort of eternal student, and one who can understand the slave-master dynamic and say, I don't want to be a part of that, actually, that's not real. That's forced into seeing a triangle in this upright direction, when in fact we can easily use the triangle's beautiful sacred geometry and a tool and set it on a horizontal and all stand within different angles and come to on the same footing, equal parts, right, on an equal standing, but with a different perspectives and point of views, to triangulate a center point from more points to get a better look at it, to see things more clearly, to build together more clearly. Everything's kind of a twisting and a playing, and when we're deconstructing distortion, we have to really remember that. And the word command, we don't need to sit command in a top tier hierarchy of negative alignment, this debt-based silliness. It doesn't have to be that way at all. In fact, commands it can go and move through a positively aligned triangle. Transactions are commands. A positive instructions, directions are commands, right? And when we can remember and sort of give ourselves wiggle room to infuse and back in unconditional love and understanding, in these, the fluidity to move and say, just because I'm saying the word command, and it is a command, doesn't mean that there isn't the opportunity, potentiality, and possibility to change, to receive that command in your own unique way, that it is a personal instruction to you that isn't and could never be harmful, and isn't something forced and alien from you that's being thrusted upon you, that you have to change and into to become and do a command outside of you. When we think of positive systems in the way, say, your organic cellular systems work, or your physiological systems, right, anatomy and all these things, your autonomic, however you want to pronounce that sort of systems for your brain, right, your blinking, your swallowing, your heartbeat, all of these regulatory things that we sort of subconsciously do. Those are beautiful commands of the organic that are displaying to us in wonderful fashion, effortlessly, positive systems and alignments, and how they do just work and just go, and how they do work for your overall best. And they are seeking homeostasis. There is this, and whether you want to look at it from a chemistry balance with the pH and all of your organ systems in there, the regulatory systems are waste processing, are moving toxins, are keeping this thing called homeostasis, which is a happy medium inside the body for working, good pH that isn't toxic in either acidic or basic level. You know what I mean? There's a neutrality. And to seek neutrality and to seek a harmonious neutrality within 2 points, opposing points. What is light and shadow work? What is what we all do? What is every parallel, parabel, whatever parable about, right? And the word command here, let's set it on that spectrum and understand that there's a beautiful opportunity in the word command to find that center point, that we could always be using the term, interpreting the term, hearing it, and exchanging command without all of those sort of negative entanglements, those sort of like thistles and burrs and those sharp corners and ugly points about it. You know, there can be wonderful support, I guess, is kind of the thing I'm thinking of. Foundation and reliability, comfort in receiving and also giving commands. And the next kind of layer that I want to get into, because I've already sort of talked too long and I have only really talked about system commands and positive alignment to an organic sort of terms. The other thing I wanted to sort of bring up is the Walter Russell prayer that I always talk about. This sort of jargon that comes along with more of a traditional religious sense, or in a faith-based or even metaphysical, spiritual, occult kind of realms. That prayer and his workings and lots of things that we come into with self-improvement, being on your personal path, ascension, and all of these kind of quests really expose us to and allow more wiggle room and more positive points on sort of that spectrum, the gauge, to be those points on the graph, right? Reference points for us. When I first started doing that prayer, I was sort of really had a bunch of those kind of rough edges and sort of bristly points, and when I'd speak those kind of words, I'd feel like they didn't align with me, and that I couldn't really resonate with them, or also more or less like the external worlds wrapped up distortions of it and all of the manipulations and the entanglements that have been created, and even that I see through them, but that they were all sort of around the term and clogging up the area, like taking my attention as well, sort of this is how negative systems work as well. So we really, when we're deconstructing distortion, we have to remember that these terms, these sort of become these reality bubbles around them of energetics. They're a system of their own, a torpedo working, right? And there's a bunch of these sort of negative ones siphoning around, little wormholes of potentiality on the negative side of the spectrum, just waiting for your light and attention to go into and dive into and make more of and give your energy to, right? Because they're always calling, they need more, they're negatively aligned. And so when I first started to do the prayer, when I first started bumping into some of these words, and more words I'll go through, trying to just stick to command now, but I would bump into that, and they would call my attention, and it took working in the first layer to just be like, I know you guys are already there. I'm not even coming to bother with you. I've already know that I'm not trapped in that mind control matrix. Those carrots out there that, yes, that others are and all of that, but I'm not there. And none of that matters. And once I started to really, learn to ignore them, ignoring isn't even the right thing. It's This is the other, when we get into new jargon and speaking in new ways. Because they're across the spectrum of all knowledge points of command. And when we sit it across this great line. And they have equal point value on my graph of command. The word command sits here in the central in 0 with neutrality. And then there's positive building and there's negative building. And like I said, they each sort of have potential for you to dive into and make as much as you want or as little as you want. But they each have this sort of relative space that they sit on the scatter plot for us on, out there in reality space. And yeah, they're bigger and they weigh more for others, and others have different views of them. They're closer or nearer or whatever. But just think about us for now, right? And for me, the word command. And as soon as you can let go of those bristles and thistles and they don't take up all of your attention and you say, oh wait, they don't even bother me. No, I'm not going to go over there and scratch myself upon them on purpose. And I'm not going to pick all these things. I've already picked them off of me. They're nothing of my direct world in life because I've sorted my issues out about them. So this is about coming to the adept level, the eternal student level, to sit at neutrality, right? And when you do that, then all of a sudden, this sort of regularness started to come through with the word command. And as I spoke the prayer week after week, and I went through I've been doing this prayer for almost 2 years now. But anyways, this is many times of many sittings too. It takes commitment in coming back. This is what eternal student means. This is why this is not for beginners, because it takes the coming back to. It takes the relativeness of knowledge points to be built within yourself to have the tangible workings to even do malleable molding with here. Otherwise, you're going to be just totally lost in the bristles and so lost. And then you feed into the negative systems, and unfortunately, you're stuck in liar loops, and now you're losing your light and love for no reason. So go do what feels good to you if you're stuck over there instead. But if you have deconstructed that and you can sit at neutrality, when we want to deconstruct distortion, that's what we need to first learn to do. And to look at what pops up first, and then to learn with that. And when that first come to me with command, the first layers that really came through to me were the systems layers, because I love that, and I've been doing that work, and that's big downloads for me. And it just happens to be a part of my keystone personalities and the things that I work on here in this time around. The layers of my workings. But the thistles and the strange corners that I kind of chose to just set aside, it's not an ignoring either, which we got tied up before about. It's that when everything has an equal footing, everything's of equal regard. So we don't disregard anything against waiting to others because you're propping other things up then. It's that we're casting an equal set of light out as best as we can, our equal judgment out on all points that we could see here across command. And then I see that, okay, those thistles and things are over there on that side, and no, I'm not going to go scratch myself and bump myself into them because I don't need to. They're there, but whatever. I'm over here. But, as I sat in neutrality and those main ones are long gone and over there I don't need to, I started to notice there's other sort of angles and things that I would be calling and gravitating towards, and I'm not really noticing, because as you sit in neutrality and as you start to really bring in other things and sense different potentials, different worlds and things come apparent to me about the word command, and I'm working through my systems work and understanding the positive and negative sense that it's energetic transactions. Command is another word for instructions and directions to do something. And who's giving what kind of instructions? And if it's a wonderful, loving, caring mother giving my command to my son, well, yes, I'd please follow my commands, and I would never command you to do anything incorrectly. Same thing with the father reference, my husband, and the father and stuff like that. And through that kind of peeling back of the layers, getting into my boss workings within my systems and turning the lens and saying I would never command my systems to do harm against myself, and understanding that I do want the best workings for these systems within myself. And I do want them to follow my commands, actually, because my creator consciousness up here, Allie, the boss who is the tier of highest consciousness, my role of observer, when I flip that lens and divide creator consciousness into a triad through my prism likeness into systems and split it to mind, body, spirit complex, each boss, I do want them to listen to, and I do want commands to be followed. I want them to follow commands, and I want commands from them as well. I want to hear their commands. I want to be commanded. I know, like, myself is not a top tier. It's not a tier like this. It's this way, even with my inner tiers, and even with God, Creator, Source, and higher self, my 5, 6, 7th, 8th dimensional selves. Densities, they don't sit higher than that. They're intermingled in ways that I can't even understand. And I want to be able, with the spiraling, beautiful sacred geometries, to have all angles. And think of tetrahedron, if you can, for a moment, and how beautiful that just that fifth dimensional shape is, and how many angles of light and observation are created within something. I want all places to be able to be observed and seen and sparkled through as they're ready and wanting to be, right? And so I want all commands and to be heard. And that building and that creating a peeling back of layers created more clarity, to where all of a sudden my spirit layer was the one who had been singing the whole time, actually. And those other words like Father and God and unconditional love even more, because all these deeper words really started to, or all of a sudden became something deeper for me. They had already been there, though. It's so funny, and when you have this sort of deeper unpeeling of the layers, yet they get larger within, and the center portal vortex, your 0 point inside your toroidal here, is ever flowing, eternal, peeling back. There's when you feel it and know it, you'll know it. If you have to ask, you'll never know. That's one of my favorite lines. It stuck with me since I was a child, and I think it's literally from cartoon, this Rugrats show, which is probably Mind Control Matrix from Nickelodeon as a child, television to tell you visions. And yet truth slips through these things. No matter how archonic they want to control things, truth is undeniable, and it sings out, and it's uncontrollable. And that's the beauty of the chase here. And that's the beauty of deconstructing distortions in our own race, in our own lives, and running our own freedom towards our highest good, further up and further in. Because there's more truth and more light, and we just come back around to the same things and use them for empowering ourselves even more because they're true. So yeah, they might have tried with those cartoons to entangle us and trip us into their silly 3D consumeristic, really materialistic sort of screen control, slave master cycles. Well, I broke that and made my own sort of personal empowerment of my light, and also a conscious tool for knowing distortions and truth versus lies, and understanding inner seeking, and understanding the truth of the game and the mystery of it all, and remembering to laugh about it, and remembering that I actually, in fact, I do know the answers myself. And if you have to ask, you'll never know. Because when you have to ask something that you already know, you're double seeking. You're seeking a false negative. You're seeking a lie and distortion of yourself. You're seeking to continue a distortion. And so, of course, you're going to continue it. And you're never going to find the real truth, because you're choosing to go in the other direction that you already know the truth is in. And that's what we're not trying to do here, right, with deconstructing distortions and command. And so, yes, as those layers peel back, I'm like, oh, I do want to be commanded, actually. But I need to always be saying to myself, who and what am I commanded by? And where does that come from? And am I connected or not, right? And when we do good balancing work with shadow and light within ourselves, and we understand, how these systems work for ourselves, and positive service alignment versus negative service alignment, you can do no wrong, honestly. So you can throw worry out the window, and you can throw all those sort of false negative fears and anxieties and choices could be wrong or whatever, they go out the window, because they all sit on the same spectrum, and I'm free to choose at any point anything, and to move out of it, and there's such a freeness in it that it's almost encouraging to make mistakes, or to go look at those things when you're ready again, because perhaps there's more learning for you to do there, right? And that maybe is saying, I'm ready and I'm strong enough to go and look at this sort of trigger angle for myself again, and shine some light on it and see more truth about it. So that's where I'm going to leave this at for now. This has been sort of the first attempt at the episode, first term for Deconstructing Distortions. Thank you for joining me and listening. I hope you'll tune in next time. I'm going to leave it a surprise what I'm going to talk about next. I'm not quite sure yet, so hopefully within a week or so, but I'm not sure exactly. We'll see how my schedule goes with back to school and things. But it is August 31st here, 2024, so maybe the first week or so of September I'll have that one out if you're looking forward to it. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.